Hello, I am Crystal Joy.
I'm David Raz.
And this is On the Chair with Crystal.
And David.
This is a podcast where we talk about the inspirations and true life stories behind the videos that we make on YouTube. And if you don't know who we are, please hang out anyway.
You don't have to have seen those videos to enjoy this content, but if you want more context, go on over, check them out. It's a good time.
If they're a good time, please watch them. On weeks like this week, I make the joke in other podcasts that it takes my soul, but really, in a retrograde, in a Mercury Gatorade. Your bitch just is about ready to be done. This is the third time we filmed this podcast.
3.
So please go watch those videos. And if you don't want to do that, if you're not a YouTube video animation watcher, bitch, that's okay. Sit in my chair, hang out with us as we talk about dumb shit. David,
Yes.
What dumb shit are we talking about today?
My Hero Academia.
My Hero Academia?
Yes.
No way.
Normally we draw from past life experience, and we talk about what the actual experience was that influenced the story.
Mm-hmm.
But this is about My Hero Academia, so
Yeah.
obviously My Hero Academia influenced the story.
Yeah, because you didn't go there.
Or did I?
If you did and you didn't bring me.
What I wanted to take from and talk about today, though, are the themes of My Hero Academia that we took from the anime and put into our video.
The inspirations.
The inspirations.
The theme-spirations.
Good.
The theme-spirations.
That's good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What are the theme-spirations, David?
First, we have what it takes to be a real hero.
Yes.
True
A
hero.
true hero?
2, the powers that be and how they played a role in the hero society.
Mm-hmm.
3, things are not just black and white.
No, they're not.
And 4, facing that shadow self, the
Basically,
parts that we want to hide.
Dark side of yourself.
The dark side of
Like
yourself.
Link in the water temple.
Now, Deku doesn't necessarily have that
Yeah.
evil
Yeah.
counterpart.
I was going to
thing.
say there's not like an inner darkness within him, which we do have in our video. So,
But every hero faces some sort of darkness in their heart
yeah.
that they need to overcome.
The darkness in your heart became...
Actually, you know what? Before that,
What?
let's do a quick synopsis on
Shit.
the show.
Okay.
And how it kind of... on our video.
For people who don't know, what's the show about?
The show is about this kid, Deku.
Little baby boy.
Little baby boy is quirkless, which
sweet
means he
baby.
doesn't have superpowers. Superpowers is quirks in this
Yeah.
world.
Mhm.
He's quirkless, gets a quirk through happenstance,
Yeah.
and then his journey on how he becomes a true hero,
Yeah.
following his idol, All Might.
Mm-hmm.
And then for you in our video,
Yeah.
it's similar. You gain your powers through an ABCD,
Yeah.
Which
was
is fun.
Yeah.
and your journey in the US version of My Hero Academia UA Academy,
Mm-hmm.
and how you want to become a true hero and follow your idol, Do Leon.
Yeah.
Do Leon is not as good as All Might. we'll just say that.
No.
So, what I really liked about it, they kind of evolve your idea of what it means to be a hero throughout the show,
Mhm.
and the side character is used to put pressure on heroes who are just saying, "I'm gonna be a hero. I'm just gonna do justice for what justice is."
For
and it's
justice
like
sake.
this character Stain challenges that idea. Okay, well, what does it mean to actually be a
It's
hero?
like, I think y'all are posers.
Yeah, he's like, I don't think you are heroes.
Fake fans.
And I think because of that,
Mm.
that's kind of what pushes the villains to become more prominent in the society.
Yeah.
And it causes the heroes to lose face.
Weren't they villaining before?
Yes, they were, but they didn't do it in such a grand scale. They weren't like organized.
They were like comfort villaining.
Yeah,
Like, I'm sad today. Let me just hurt this guy.
yeah, probably.
Okay.
You know, maybe they stole some pennies from the tip jar.
Monsters.
How dare they?
Monsters.
So Deku, he has this heart for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it hasn't been said in the show yet, but I think that they're going to be talking about how it's not just to go take care and stop the villains from doing it, right? It's not just to beat them up and stop them from doing the villainy, but it's to connect to them and understand them on a personal level.
Oh, shit. So
Yeah.
how...
And anime
An anime does
Nakama
that.
friend,
Oh, my God.
yeah,
Conquers all.
conquers all.
So I got that part right
You did.
in the game.
You got that right.
I did. I got that very right. I'm so good at this game. Shit. So my question, David, what makes a true hero in the first place? Or not even a true hero, because it's called Can You Become a Pro Hero? Which I mean, even in the bad ending, you can successfully accomplish.
Technically, you could.
Yeah, we'll talk about the bad ending later.
Yeah.
But the ending that I got
Yeah.
was listening and understanding and hearing the villain out and then being like, oh shit, everything's fucked up and it's corrupt. Fuck, let's like work together and take it down.
I think that's interesting, right? Because
And
you
I'm a
even
pro
said
hero.
even the bad ending could be a pro.
Mm-hmm.
You can still be a pro.
Yeah.
Even the bad ending. And I think that's like a big point. If you could be a pro hero, which even these bad heroes could be pro heroes,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be a true hero. Yeah, it's just totally my opinion. But that was connecting to the characters, that the evildoers, and not just labeling them evil, but seeing them as people.
Yeah.
You're trying to get to the core of a problem,
Mm-hmm.
of why they're doing the villainy,
Yeah.
and not just taking care of their actions, the symptoms of what they're doing.
So a true hero actually takes care of the core of something rather than like
The symptoms.
the symptoms. Like, oh, this person's robbing people. Let's beat them up and put them in jail. It's like, but
Right.
why are they robbing people?
Right. Why are they doing that? What are they trying to? What pushed them to start robbing people?
And then we figure that out. But the systems that be don't allow for that.
Right.
Which
now
kind of gets into the next one.
that perfectly flows into the next one. So we'll start talking about that. You have the government in My Hero. Barely
don't
actually. You don't really see them.
Really engage with it
No, and I think
in this show.
This I'm kind of taking a little bit from One Punch Man.
Yeah.
You know, because I think One Punch Man kind of touches, because One Punch Man touches on the economics of being a hero.
Of doing heroing.
Yeah, whereas My Hero does not do that.
No, it just is.
It's like everybody just has money.
Yeah.
Right?
Fucking assholes.
Like, even the villains are barely...
Just have money. They're just like chilling
Yeah,
in their
yeah.
warehouse. Where does the rent for that warehouse come from?
Like, they're barely doing it
Are
for
they
money.
all squatters?
Maybe. But I noticed this.
You
They
know.
never do it for, like, money. They're doing it for, like, destruction and like, changing
No, yeah.
the
None of
world.
them want money.
No.
But they're all vibing with their cool outfits. So all of them are decked out. Are they in a socialist like Japan? Where
Maybe.
like everybody just gets a monthly like stipend?
I know, right?
That must be what it is.
Must be. 'Cause
Well-
they have some...
I wish. Fuck, god damn it. But in One Punch Man, they do a much better job of like detailing. So we didn't really mention it,
Yeah.
but in our video that we did, if you didn't see it, it turns out that the heroes on top are corrupt.
Yes.
And we're like, oh no.
I'm not... Now, again, I don't want spoilers for My Hero,
No.
but you barely get to see the government in that. But when you do, it's of a similar flavor.
Similar vibes, similar energy. And I think, as we mentioned before, we recorded this podcast before. I think what you mentioned in one of the earlier recordings of this podcast,
Mhm.
you said that you were pointing out the actions of the heroes on top. It's like, why are they doing that?
Right.
So it's like, well, when you look at the economics of it,
Mm-hmm.
there is a like, oh, well, they're just trying to stay on top.
Right.
Because the system in and of itself is flawed. So they're trying to
Mhm.
function in the, like, if the government's like, hey, just go fix this for us. Here's
Mhm.
some money, figure it the fuck out. They're just like, okay, well, if I want the money, then I gotta go start the crime, which is what they were doing. They were starting the crime.
I know that that doesn't happen in My Hero, but because the government's kind of corrupt and it's just like, do what I want you to do on the dark side of things, right? The things that the goody two-shoes won't be showing. I wanted to blatantly put that in our video. And so here you have the government placing that burden on the heroes,
Mm-hmm.
who can then have heroes that want to take heroes, quote unquote, that want to take advantage of that system, and
Like there always is.
that's flawed, which always happens.
There's always is.
That starts to cause the corruption, and then it just kind of trickles on down to why crime is happening in the first place.
Yeah, which is where that parallel comes in from One Punch Man.
Right.
Which is the system sets it up so that you have to like go get some points and
Mhm.
get your money by doing the points, and it's kind of like, well, fuck, you can be like the best one.
Yeah, are you a S-class hero? Are you a D-class hero?
Yeah, and it doesn't mean anything. So it's like I assumed when we were playing the game that it was a similar system. It wasn't mentioned in our video, but I assumed it was something like that.
Because in My Hero, it's pretty unsaid, but everyone would guess that, okay, so All Might is...
There is a number 1 hero, and there is a number 2
Yeah, there
hero.
is a number 1 and number 2. They number them.
Yeah.
So it does matter.
There's a system of some kind.
It's just not the letters that One Punch Man did.
Yeah.
So here we have the government being corrupt, and it kind of trickles down into people taking advantage and doing what people do best, which is just taking whatever they can to take advantage and be up top.
Yeah, they're pretty much, the system in and of itself leaves too much room for that kind of stuff to happen. And what has been good enough is just like, well, it's good enough, it works, right? Why would we, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Like, why would we bother with it? And we get into this situation that we see in the video that we did. And I know you mentioned, well, it's not the same. Well, the whole point of our video is that it's not the same. And it's also in America,
Which
where
we know,
corruption runs free.
I don't think that's a secret. Politicians are super corrupt all the time.
It's like a meme. God, America sucks.
Flip-flopping their opinions on whatever suits them best.
Taking money from corporations to make laws that benefit the corporations, that harm people and poison their water.
And
Normal America things.
If you pay attention, it mirrors that.
Yeah.
It mirrors that in My Hero and in real life.
Yeah.
Of what's happening now, really.
If I'm not mistaken, though that's a big part of it, it wasn't the primary part of it.
No.
I feel like it's one of the first things we're talking about, because at the crux of what's going on outside and stuff, it's kind of unavoidable.
See, yeah, the reason why I wanted to talk, it's a byproduct of what's happening, because if we're looking at the core, again, the core of what's happening, it starts with the individual. The individual allows this system to keep in play. Of course, one person can't change a big system all on their own unless you're someone like All Might or you have an OP power like Crystal.
Yeah, baby. When I win the game, I had the almost OP power in the world.
But if everyone wants to take care of that shadow self within them, then systems like that wouldn't exist.
There wouldn't be a need for them.
Right.
How does things not being black and white go into it? Like within a system, like we can know, like we mentioned the ridiculousness of the circus that is politics in America. We can all, well, most people can admit that there's an issue in the system.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I say that there's always somebody who disagrees. But if you think critically, be like, something's not right here.
Right.
Something needs to change. Something's a little off. But then you start getting to, well, that's bad, but then where does the good start? And how does that play into the video with the everything's not black and white?
So in these stories, you kind of have a black and white system just from the building of the world. You have the heroes, and then you have the villains. But what I really like in My Hero and what we incorporated is that you're not strictly good or bad. And you're like, duh, doesn't that obviously doesn't make sense.
No, duh.
Everybody has evil in them, duh. But that in a show, that line kind of gets blurred. You're kind of like, well, you're a hero. You do these good things, and you're not a hero. You're a villain. You're obviously awful. You're
Doing
like,
bad things.
Bad things. But when in our episode, in our show, what we're doing is when you start to view people that way, when you tribe them that way, you label them,
Categorize them. Yeah.
you categorize them. You start to view them as less than a person. They're no longer human. And so systems like something like what Doliana is doing doesn't seem so bad. It kind of is a slippery slope to getting that system to start happening. Well, they're villains. They deserve to get.
They're doing bad things. Well, the thing is, nobody wakes up and decides to be a villain. Not for real. Like there's the hashtag villain era on like TikTok, which I'm been through. Bitch, I'm your villain. Dream about me at night. But no, for real, when you're not, that's just you looking out for yourself. When nobody just wakes up and it's like, I want to throw a baby out of a window. Like,
I hope not.
I mean, of sound mind, of okay well-being. That does not, it's just not what people do. So nobody's like mustache twirling in train tracks woman. Like that's
right. Minus the fact that if I had a mustache that long, I would totally twirl it.
You would twirl it, but you wouldn't do evil and twirl it.
I feel like you almost have to. No, I'm joking.
This is how it starts.
That's how it started.
It starts with the mustache. It starts with the mustache.
No, and the way they do that, the way they show that no one's just good or evil in My Hero is they start to give these villains backstories and a look into their psyche about why they're doing what they're doing. It's not just to empathize with the character, but it shows that every villain doesn't see themselves as a villain in their own story.
Yeah.
And you are a villain in someone's story.
Yeah.
You know, in someone else's story, they're the main character. You're the villain.
Yeah, I think we talked about, I don't know if we're planning a podcast for this video, but like we have a video about, are you the main character? And I feel like that video kind of missed the point. Well, we didn't have time to.
Yeah.
Everybody's the main character of their own story. But that is exactly true. Like I am a villain in somebody's story. And you might be like, Crystal, you're so great. What do you mean? Oh, bitch. I can name 3 people right now who would love to see me suffer. And it's not because I was like mean to them first. But that's just, you look out for yourself. You do your thing. People's wounds come up. Their shadow, which we'll get to in a little bit, starts coming out. And bibbity bop, now you got to separate yourself from some people who cause you hurt and pain, and then they're really mad. And now you're a villain. But simultaneously, you can be like, I'm the best person in the world. I am righteous. I am on the right side of things. And you could be despicable, like Do Leon. And you think you're the hero, but you are actively harming people. And that's the importance of the shadow part. Like, so nothing's black and white, and it brings to the gray, which is like the color of a shadow. I'm so good at transitions.
Look at that.
Look at me go.
I think the last thing I wanted to touch on before we start moving on to the shadow stuff is this idea of labels, this idea of tribing something. When you try to label something so hard that you forget that the other person is human or the other being is human.
Like, what do you mean?
Okay, instance, in our story, Do Leon is just beating the crap out of this person who's
petty theft.
A petty theft, right? And everybody's reactions to it is like, okay, well, did you have to like go
like
so hard?
He beats the fuck out of him.
Yeah.
It's like an Easter egg, but if you watch really close, a severed arm comes out of the fighting cloud. I specifically requested that from our lovely artist.
And it's kind of, that's a dual meaning. And this is why there might be 2 subjects. If that's a dual meaning, you have the top hero just kind of wailing on this guy and taking out his frustration on this low petty theft.
Which is by the way in a bad, quote unquote, bad area. So this is a disenfranchised area that we're in as well.
Where it's like, oh, it's a bad part of town.
Well, that we were talking about Seed's core moments from before. There's a reason why bad parts of town are bad.
Right.
And it's not people just deciding to be mean.
And
it's systemic.
This kind of mirrors the ACAB thing going on, where not every hero in this story is going to be awful.
No.
Not all of them are doing these things, but there are heroes that are doing it, and the top heroes are doing it.
Which is where the villain comes in and is like, you're a fucking bootlicker to the player. And they're just like, what do you mean? Like, I am a hero? What do you mean?
I'm a hero? Like,
I'm here to help people. What are you doing, bitch? Blowing up statues. Fuck you.
You're the one who's terrorizing stuff.
Yeah. And again, I mean, when we were discussing the concepts, we couldn't really see a way around it, but it is so prevalent because it's not the key takeaway.
Yeah.
The key takeaway is self-work, which is saving best for last. But it is unavoidable. The parallels between police brutality and corruption in a system that needs to be changed fundamentally versus my uncle or my mom is in the police force and they're like nice. Like, I think when I understood why people say ACAB, which is like all cops are bastards, you go, no, because you can't change it unless you're on the inside. The thing is, here's the secret. They're not saying that all of you are bad people.
Right.
It means that you are like bastardized. It's like perverted. It's like tainted, right? You might go in with the best of intentions, but then you're in the middle of a system that forces you to support, even unknowingly, fucked up, harmful behavior to other human beings. And there's countless stories on TikTok, particularly when 2020 was happening. It was like going really crazy of ex-cops who are like, I left and this is why I left. Because when you start to do good, when you try to change the system from the inside, they destroy your life.
Yeah.
because the system is made up the way it's made up of, and it's basically a glorified gang. This is straight from the mouths of people who have been in it. That's why they say that.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, you're a bad person. It reminds me of the Final Fantasy VII.
Barrett?
Yes. We know what scene I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't remember the situation, but...
I think they're entering the Shinra building.
Yeah, they're entering the Shinra building.
They're in the elevator.
They're in the elevator, and it's like, I don't know, they're like trying to like sneaky.
Yeah.
They're trying to
like not be conspicuous.
Yeah, like sneaky into the elevator.
Yeah.
And they run into this like this little girl who's like an assistant. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She's like real nice. And they're just like, damn, she's real nice. She don't know nothing. She don't know nothing about all this fucked up shit that this corporation's doing.
Yeah.
And then Barrett speaks up, and I don't remember the line. I'm gonna fucking butcher it. But somebody who partakes in the system is not without sin.
Mm-hmm.
She is just as responsible, because at the end of the day, there are these like, unless it's a really, really well kept secret, really well kept secret. At the end of the day, you can have miles of hard evidence that fucked up things are happening at the hands of the system, and you'd be like, well, I'm just taking notes, and I just need money, and this is the only place that would hire me. And that's where the black and white starts coming in, because it's like that person is responsible because they're helping perpetuate the system, but also that bitch just needed some money.
And that's,
but they're still a part of it.
Pretty much what some of those pro heroes in our story are doing. Like they're trying to survive in a system that's already set up. They don't have the power themselves to just overthrow a system of government and change everything in the story. So that's where you come in later in.
As OP, yeah.
But one of the endings in the story
yeah.
was totally like you just become another cog in the system.
Yeah. So there was the option to listen to the villain, which is what I picked. And then there was the option to just like, don't listen to that bitch, fuck him up, beat him up.
Don't just label them as just a villain and they stop, and then stop them brutally. And
then you become a pro hero. And you're just a part of the system. But then by the time you're in, it's too late. Yeah. You've already put in too much time. You've already put in too much money, too much everything. You'd have to walk away from your entire life because now you're part of the fucked up system and you're helping perpetuate it.
And you don't have enough power to, again, overthrow this system. If you picked that option where you just stop them and beat them up, you don't have enough power to overthrow the system.
I mean, it makes sense because when I stop and talk to them is when you become OP. So I don't know if we mentioned it yet in this recording of the podcast.
Yeah.
I can't remember. They're all starting to blend together.
I know.
At the end, the villain is actually you.
Yes.
All along.
So actually, I'm going to use that to tie in to start going into
the next one.
The next one, yeah. So the villain is you, and you chose to to listen to them and to kind of, when you listen to them,
you become one. You accept that part of yourself.
Yes. And that's how you find out that it's actually you.
Yes.
So it goes into a backstory, and it turns out that it's you. You were split because of trauma and your strong feelings about Doleon and the past that happened. And
you become two different people, but you're still one person. It's like the dark side of yourself becomes its own person. So your power then is split in half.
Yes.
And by choosing at the end of the thing to unify
you become
get that OP power back.
OP power because you have the power now to not only accept villains and yourself, your dark side, your dark shadow. That allows you to be complete as a person and complete with power. OP power to overthrow.
Which is just I think you did such a good job. I think it's so well done.
Thank you.
I'm blowing wind up your skirt a little, but I'm just like, I mean it. I think it's so well done.
I'll take it.
I think you did a great job with it. Well, okay, so I think, you could correct me if I'm wrong. I think the shadow portion and understanding the inspiration behind that part is the most important and the biggest takeaway.
Yes.
We had to cover all of that other stuff just because it's undeniable, and it was hard to
part of it.
Yeah, it's hard to not fit it into the narrative. We almost tried to remove it from the narrative. We can't. No. So it just is what it is, and it also all ties together. It's all technically one thing. But the shadow is the most important.
Yes, which is the final piece that we're going to take over of the themspiration.
Yeah.
Take it and put it in our video.
Okay, so what are we talking about when we say shadow? Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
It's when the sun comes out and it leaves a dark spot. No. It's the undesirables, the undesirable part of yourself that you refuse to accept. You tuck away. And I think I have a quote here in my notes that you put in.
I did. So can I interject fun facts?
Absolutely.
Okay, while you look that up. The shadow self was, I believe, originally postulated by Carl Jung.
Yep.
I could be wrong. Freud might have mentioned it at some point, but I'm pretty sure it was standardized by Carl Jung. And it is not the ego. It is different from the ego. If the ego is the sun, so the ego is what we want everybody to see. The ego is I, me, me, me.
Me, me,
I,
me, 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 me.
me, me. And we then have to be the best. We have to be amazing. We have to be accepted. Everybody has to like us because I am I win. I'm best. I am better than everyone. I win. And so then, what does that leave? Society goes, I don't like that about you. And they go, okay, so we're just going to put that right back there. And then we put it in the shadow. So the brighter the ego is untamed, the brighter the ego is because it's untamed. Deeper and darker that shadow is of things that we've decided, have been told, or have been subconsciously taught are undesirable traits in a human being.
Right.
And then that shadow gets real dark.
So the quote you have here is by Carl Jung. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. But if it is repressed and isolated from consciousness, it never gets corrected.
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me?
Yeah.
It's like the more you shine, like I said, the deeper and darker that part of you is going to get. But it's the shadow. It's unseen. It's tucked away in a box and shoved away, and we don't ever talk about it. We don't talk about what's in the box. Are all not even aware that it's there. When I realized that this was a thing, I was like, oh, fuck, that is important. And I should start untangling that web of myself. And it's not fun. It's very, very annoying. Because to admit that you were awful, or like what society deems as awful, is what you think of yourself as or on other people as awful, is not fun. What the shit is that the more you suppress something, you take it, you're like, oh, that's not a good thing, we suppress. Well, all energy has to be expressed one way or the other, and it starts getting projected.
Right, because it can't be denied.
It can't be denied. So then...
Or rather, it can't be destroyed.
Yeah, energy can't be created or destroyed, so we have this energy, we have this emotion, we have this trait, this quality, or whatever, that could be dealt with at a healthy level if we had emotionally mature systems or parents or somebody around us to help us through those things, or a society that doesn't deem those to be default setting awful emotions. If we were able to work through them, that wouldn't even happen in the first place. But we take them and we repress them, and then they get infected, like energetically infected, basically. And so what happens is it can't be expressed through yourself, so it's going to start coming out in everything around you. Because you see that in everybody else. Yep.
And in this story, you kind of see it through the powers that be. It starts to bleed out into the heroes, who then it starts to bleed out into the crime that's happening, and eventually the player who is so affected that they get split in half.
Well, that's how it works. It starts on the inside, right? And then it, as within, so without, and as without, so within, right? As above, so below, and as within, so without, as I believe the Emerald Tablet states. So with that being the case, we then have cause and effect on a massive scale on the exterior, causing systems and circumstances like the burning building situation in our video, that then brings a quote-unquote darkness in somebody's heart or whatever, and it's not addressed.
And you deny it so hard that it ends up splitting you.
And it ends up splitting it in half. And it ends up being like, well, that's not me. I don't do that.
Right.
Nope. Me? No. And everybody has that. Like, what you think is awful, you've done it. I'm sorry. I think in our toxic video, we didn't really have a chance to talk about our past toxic shit. We talked about fun, like, stories that inspired the video, which those are all true.
Yeah.
But it would have been interesting to talk about our toxic shit, which is maybe for another podcast. But
like our toxic traits.
Yeah. Like, for fun fact, I was a huge bigot before the age of, I don't know, 23, 24. If you knew me before the ages of 23 or 24, I'm sorry. I would like to personally and publicly apologize to you if, God, the things that came out of my mouth.
I don't think you said anything to well, maybe you have.
I look back at how I thought about things and how I viewed things, and I was like, oh, I'm just like a good little... I'm an ex-evangelical. Hi, nice to meet you. Deconstructing constantly. God, I remember being like, somebody, I don't even remember the conversation, but we were talking about morals or something. And I remember standing there and being like, God, I'm so glad I'm right so that I don't burn in hell. And I was,
Yeah.
God, I'm gonna peel my own skin off. I hate that.
No, yeah, that makes
But
sense.
when you face it and you learn and you grow and you realize that these negative, that's just one of many. I'm toxic. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm working on it constantly. And everybody is. And that's the point.
Right.
That is important. If I did not do my shadow work, I probably would not be here right now. Yeah. And it's the importance of acknowledging these unwanted traits in yourself. As like, well, who wants to be a bigot? Well, you don't think that you are one.
No.
I was typically approached as a nice person because I was generally nice.
Right.
It's not always this obvious, oh, you're a bigot, who wants to be that?
Right.
You don't ever think that you're going to be that, even if it's blaringly obvious to everybody else. Sometimes it's really small.
Yeah.
Like a good example is a friend of ours was dating somebody relatively recently, and there was I don't even remember the verbiage that was used, but it was something like needy, dependent, something like that.
Along the lines of that.
And they're just like, in a calm way, this person is a very calm communicator, so I don't doubt them, who are coming across as rather needy or dependent or something like that. I'm not dependent. I'm not doing that. Blah, 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 blah. I'm actually just doing this, and then like details literally being needy and or dependent. And they were like, that's literally what that means. They're like, no, you're being that way.
Gaslight.
It's you're the one. Because it's honestly, as much as that person, we can easily be like, oh, they're just gaslighting them on purpose. They knew all along. Blah, blah, blah. No. Genuinely, this person could not face the idea of what they have determined in and of themselves. That is a despicable and disgusting trait. And I would never be that. And so it's being projected because it's going to be expressed whether you want it to or not.
Yep.
And then you're going to have that come up around you all the time. And you're going to complain about it in other people. So
especially if you see it in other people.
Yeah. If you are nails on a chalkboard about somebody, it's probably because it is within you somewhere. Now, not all the time.
Not always.
Not all the time.
But
fucking Brienne.
But sometimes.
But sometimes. Why it's so important to shine a light onto that part of yourself is when you come, it's not to delete.
No.
It's not to delete that part of you.
If you notice, Misted was still there.
Yeah.
I
had a really cool outfit.
You had a really cool outfit and really cool hair. You were complete as
a person. So to integrate the shadow isn't to delete these unwanted traits that you just didn't get rid of good enough.
Right.
It's to unify and become one with all parts of yourself and to work through those things that caused those harsh, intense emotions in the first place and finally feel them and finally be able to let go of them or integrate them or express them in a more healthy way. So how do you do that? On a practical sense, how does one integrate that? Because we could talk about it and be like, okay, and that's it. Have fun.
Have fun.
Like,
go look.
Have fun with that, bitch.
Doing that.
How would you do it? How's your shadow work been?
My shadow work's been great. Life has been forcing me to see where I am.
I know exactly what you mean.
Feeling undesirable and sit and meditate on it. Actually sit with the feeling. Actually, I saw a TikTok that was talking about a truck that's coming towards you. I wish I could remember the TikToker so I can shout them out, but I don't remember what the name was. But there's a truck coming towards you, and like, what do you feel when
that's a question.
When you see the truck coming?
Listener, when you're in the middle of the street, truck coming towards you, how do you feel?
And my knee-jerk reaction, which is I guess a couple people's knee-jerk reactions, was like, I get out the way.
Fuck, I gotta move.
Duh. And the person says, well, you avoided the question. I don't know if you realized, I asked, what do you feel, not what do you do?
Or want to do. How do you feel?
That was because you are avoiding the feelings.
You intellectualize your problems.
You intellectualize your problems, your feelings, and you don't sit with them. So that is what I have been doing, been avoiding them and intellectualizing them. And now it's time to sit with them and...
Even the unwanted things?
Even the unwanted ones.
Wasn't there... I mean, you don't have to give name to this trait because I don't want to blow up your spot. But there was a conversation that we had recently where like, am I like that? Do I do that? One thing.
I don't remember what it was.
I think it was about something on TikTok, how it was a parent who was dealing with a kid who was like on the ground and they didn't want to like clean their room. And the dad spoke up and were like, do I need to come over there? And they're like, no. And they stood up and walked away.
Right.
And the person was stitching it and was like, that's
toxic.
That's fucked up. That makes me very sad. That kid wasn't being disrespectful. That kid was asking for help, feeling overwhelmed. It's going to be so much, Mom. I don't even know where to start. And they were crying because they felt alone and they didn't know how to manage. It's a skill.
It came across as the kid was being disrespectful and not wanting to do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's how the dad took it.
That's how the dad took it default. And you came to me and you were like, what do you think about this? And I was like, yeah, that woman's completely right.
Right.
Like 110%. It's a child. A child doesn't know compartmentalization and how to handle large tasks. Like, of course, I feel overwhelmed when I have a large task. Imagine an acid trip child.
Right.
And then you were like, damn.
Am I like that?
I would have been like, I told you to, and
I would have been like the dad, because I remember
how that was done to you.
That was done to me growing up.
And you would always say, I would never be that kind of parent.
Yes.
And that's where the shadow comes in, because it's like, I would never, of course, I understand, I would listen to my kid and let them talk to me about stuff. But at the end of the day, there's this like suppressed emotion of frustration and injustice that was never dealt with as a child, that you're now like, well, that's just how I was treated. So that's just what we do. Now we don't have kids, and you are constantly asking yourself these questions, which is honestly why we don't have kids. Is because neither of us are like feel ready in that regard. Like, I'm not about to re-traumatize another generation. Like, 100%. I'm here to don't have kids unless you've been through therapy and are deeply connected with yourself. Like,
please, for the child's sake,
because we're not perfect. You would say David's the sweetest bean, and he is the sweetest bean, but we have our shit. Everybody has our shit,
and going back and dealing with that
and admitting it,
admitting it, two, having to go back and treat my younger self how I would wanted to have been treated, and then deconstructing that process is all part of, like,
it wasn't your fault.
Yeah, like, it wasn't my fault.
It wasn't your fault.
All part of that is so that I don't repeat it onto my eventual... Or project it onto others.
We suppress, and then we project.
Right.
And then we deny. And that is the nature of the shadow. So these things that you do, like, that's an awful thing to do. Like, that's...
Did that answer the question of how to do it?
I think so. In a way, I would say...
In a simple way. Let's break it down in a simple way.
Admitting is the first step. They say Alcoholics Anonymous for a reason. You gotta admit it. But we've talked about it in so many other podcasts. Being self-aware is so important. If you can't give name to or admit that it's even there, we can't deal with it.
Yeah.
You have to admit that there's a problem,
you have to have self-evaluation.
A perceived problem, because it's not a problem. The festering of it is the problem.
Right.
Then once you have that, you go, okay, well, where did that come from? Right? David said, oh shit, I thought I would be a great parent. It came from this being done to me and having this repressed frustration, and then it's never dealt with, and then I have to control other things because I never had control in my life. We undo. We go, why? Why? Keep asking yourself why. Why? Well, because I don't want the kid to be disrespectful. Why? Because I was taught that kids shouldn't be disrespectful. Well, why?
Yeah.
Well, because my parents didn't want to deal with my emotions. Why?
Well, because my parents said I was disrespectful. Well, why is that disrespectful?
Why is that disrespectful?
Why
don't you talk to your parent?
Yeah.
Because your parent doesn't listen to you. You just keep going down this little tree until we get to the core, which is what we were talking about before, this little seedling of why that's there. And you go, oh, I don't have this nasty, undesirable trait. It's birthed from this thing. And
AKA that all boils down to that kid has to deal with that. But the kid is a kid.
The kid is a kid. They don't know how to manage cleaning of a room.
It is the adult
who has to teach it. So a lot of parents get so triggered.
Yes.
They get very triggered raising kids. They think, oh, the kid's going to solve all the problems, and they have kids, and the kids are the age. The kid's never been your age. The kid is the kid, but you've been that age, right? I heard another person on TikTok talking about this. And it's your responsibility to meet them where they are. And if you have unresolved pain or frustration from that period of time, you're going to want to shut it down, because that's your shadow that you don't want to deal with. So you're like, no, that's not there. Shut up. You're being annoying. And that's how that starts to unravel. So it's not always going to be like, oh, my parents, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's like something that happened at school, or there's a trauma big T event that made you not have the capacity or time to deal with an emotion that would get in the way. God, that's one of my things.
Yeah.
Like, just 13 plus years of nonstop traumatic events, and I just had to go and survive and be there, and that made me be a workaholic, and it made me think my value is in doing and getting over things. And sometimes it's systems that we grew up in, so nobody ever was like, this is how you be a bigot, Crystal.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just, so good people do this and bad people do this, and you're bad people if you do this, and you're like, oh, I'm not.
And again,
bad.
I'm not a bad
that
means that they're a bad people.
That means that they're a bad people. I would never be a bad people. And you internalize that shit, and it starts to fester because you refuse to deal with the source emotion.
And how does this tie all into the video?
Becoming one with yourself.
Yep.
This, I didn't do a good job. I just wanted to take, I wanted to be bad bitches because Misted's a bad bitch. I love that bitch. You know what? I love my shadow.
There you go.
She's a bad bitch. Like, you get it disinfected, get some disinfectant, turn the lights down a little bit, get everything back to that nice little gray area, not too bright, not too dark. Misted's a bad bitch. And I love embodying the Misted part of myself. She's awesome.
Something I wanted to talk about with Misted is that Misted had valid reasons for what Misted was doing. Mm-hmm. Like, what Doleon did to that character was awful. Mm-hmm. And it's only right to have want
to stop it.
To stop it. And because if Misted had done nothing, then it would have continued.
Yeah. But do we really need to blow things up? That's where like the approach is skewed, but she was not whole. Mm-hmm. So when you're whole, which goes back to the unification of the selves, it's not to delete this despicable dark side of myself, the she monster, nasty bitch that I can be. It's like, oh, okay, well, why are we like that? Let's sit down. Let's have some lunch with ourselves and our brain.
And let's use this in a constructive, positive way.
Wow, you know what? I am okay, and I love being that bad bitch, and that's okay. It's okay to express this emotion, to express that need, to be, feel, see this or that.
And I want the player, the watcher who's playing along, to understand that they can accept those dark parts of themselves as well. Take those parts, love those parts,
and rechannel that energy. Transmute that energy, right?
Then you too can be a pro hero.
Be a pro hero.
The true hero.
I think the one last thing that we put in another podcast, one of the other ones that I want to mention is that you can only worry about yourself. Yeah. This was a lot of system, a lot of like, oh, well, you worry about yourself and your shadow, like the system still sucks. The allegory of like becoming OP because you've become deunified with yourself, and then this one person can take over the system. The thing is, you can only worry about yourself. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's going to know what the shadow is, which is why we're making this podcast. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's going to know even how to deal with it, which is another reason why we're making this podcast.
Which is why we made the video.
Well, a lot of people don't even want to deal with the idea of it. They're like, nope, not me. I'm perfect. Not me, bitch. I know everything there is to know. I'm perfect. I don't deal with it. But what happens when we deny that shadow part of ourselves so much? We have this projection that just is causing our earth and our world and our systems to just deteriorate and harm and hurt people. Mm. That is the core of the system. The system was made by people. The system didn't just yeet itself into existence.
Enough hurt people created a system that was
hurting people because they were projecting their suppressed shadow. And if everybody can get it together and all of us can love all parts of ourselves to really come to terms with our shadow,
then you can love others.
And if everybody's doing that, then we can all then fix the system.
And that's why the system will then not exist,
because they would be like, oh, the system's dumb, we're done. The last thing is, I think, the importance of admitting that you could be wrong. I think when the shadow is built upon we build our lives upon these foundations that are built on the shadow that we are denying, right? Yeah. Or our ego even.
Right, sure.
And when we go, oh man, let me look back at that shadow and admit that it's there. Well, if I do that, then my house of cards is destroyed.
Right, I have to admit that I'm wrong.
I have to admit that I'm wrong, and that changes my paradigm. And if my paradigm is changed, my entire life falls apart.
Who am I as a person?
What choices did I make? Who am I as a person? And if the thought of, for a moment, whatever thing you find very important, I don't care if it's your thoughts, religion, opinions, whatever, I don't fucking care. To yourself quietly, this is one of the pivotal moments for myself in my deconstruction. What if you are wrong? If that makes you want to throw up a little bit, and you're like, no, because I'm not wrong, because that's just not the case. Because no, you have a lot of work to do.
We invite you to
explore that, because if you are afraid or unable to say, what if I'm wrong, and not feel ease and peace, there's an issue. You are living in a state of ego, which is overshining your shadow, which is just making things worse. It's terrifying at first, but it was so freeing to be able to be like, what if I'm wrong? What if I am fucked up? What if this isn't okay? And what if I don't have it all right? Once I accepted it and came to peace with it, it was freeing, because I could then find truth in everything and anything. Yeah. Then it's not like who's right and who's wrong. It's what works and what doesn't. Right. And you can not works in like the money flows and the economics and the blah, blah, blah. On a human level, what works? Are you content? Are the people around you happy and okay? Not like, I'm happy. I'm happy. Crosses arms and leans away. Like, no, you're not. On a soul level. If we're all doing this work on a shadow work, toning down the ego, as I've mentioned in past episodes, not deleting it, mastering it, becoming one with it. So when something comes up and you're like, well, this could be not the case, or I could be wrong about this thing that I find very important, or this undesirable word could define some of my actions. You're not like, no, defensive. You go, I want to think on that, and I want to work on that, and I want to deconstruct that. You'll be free, and the world around you will start to fall into a sense of peace that you didn't know was possible.
Because you're not so concerned with being right. You're allowing the space to grow.
Yes, and I think that's what's most important. Which then would solve you, which then would solve the systems, which is because nothing's black and white and being a true hero, and everything comes back.
The end.
We upload this podcast once a month in tandem with our YouTube videos. So you can check this podcast out monthly on any of your favorite podcasting services, or check out our YouTube videos. You'll see those go up and be like, oh my God, there's a new podcast. That's us. Hi.
If you want more updates on the podcast, you can follow us on Twitter at OnTheChairPod and on Instagram at OnTheChairPod.
Or you could follow us as human beings and our updates and our thoughts and fun social media bits anywhere at The Doodles, at the DOOTLEZ.
That's at the DOOTLEZ.
And that's it.
Bye.
That's it. Okay, bye.